Okay, so today I wanted to talk about something that's in some other games, namely Apocalypse World games, that I think really should be in Dungeons and Dragons. And well, okay, let me give you some background on this. So in D&D, just going back from the earliest days of D&D, there was always the guy, or at least stereotypically, there was the guy that was going into the tavern and wanted to hit on the girls. There's that one skit where we're listening in to an actual session of Dungeons and Dragons, and there's the guy that attacks the darkness with magic missile, and then there's one guy who's like he's looking through the refrigerator, and he's like, if there's any girls in the tavern, I want to do them. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about, but there's this famous skit, this famous audio skit, a funny audio skit that's about these dorks playing Dungeons and Dragons, and one of the dorks is a guy that just wants to seduce the women in the tavern, basically. So this type of player is the kind of person who wants to seduce fictional people. And that's fine. I kind of feel like that's a better way for a person to behave than to want to kill people, which is just the default behavior in Dungeons and Dragons is to just kill everybody. Trying to sleep with them, that's at least a step above beheading them. Rape excluded, of course, but there's no real mechanism in Dungeons and Dragons for that kind of romantic hero, the kind of guy that wants to, meet the women and or girl that wants to meet the women or guys, I guess, whatever it is, whatever combination you want to do, it's fine with me. But there should be some mechanism for that, and you could argue that D&D is a fighting game, but I think the only reason why D&D is a fighting game is because that's the only tool you have is fighting. So, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So, if there were some other way of handling relationships and such and interacting with people, I think it would help the game. Now, the game Monsterhearts, which is based off of Apocalypse World, it's all about relationships. It's relation to a fault, really. And the playbook that I'm looking at right now, these are a variety of playbooks. This is the Fae. These are found on buriedwithoutceremony.com. But what I wanted to emphasize about these playbooks is that they all have a sex move. So, for example, if the Fae, who's like a fairy type creature, Monster Hearts is like imagine a CW show in a role playing game version. You know how in CW they always have like witches, teenage witches going to high school, or teenage vampires going to high school, or what, like Twilight or whatever. It's teenage monsters basically, and they fall in love and have dramas and such like that. But anyways, so one of those monsters you can be is a fae, and the fae's sex move is when you lie with another, you can ask them for a promise. If they refuse, take two strings on them, and a string is a way of manipulating other people. And then we got the ghost here. The ghost, when you have sex with someone, you both get to ask a question of one another, and they can ask. This can be asked in character or player to player. They must answer honestly or directly. It's pretty good power for sleeping with somebody. And again, we're talking about the characters sleeping with characters, not people actually sleeping with people. Just to be clear again. This is the what am I looking at right now? Oh, the ghoul. The ghoul sex move: when you have sex with someone, create a new hunger, which is kind of a well, it's a mechanism in the game. It doesn't really matter. The hollow, who's like kind of like Frankenstein. When you have sex with someone, both players secretly write down whether the sex was confusing or soothing for their character. If you reveal the same answer, both characters mark experience. That's kind of a fun one. The Infernal, who's kind of like a devil. When you have sex, the dark power loses a string on you and gains a string on whoever you had sex with. So demonic power or whatever transfers over to the other person. This is the Mortal. This would be like Kristen Stewart in Twilight. When you have sex with someone, it awakens something sinister within. The next time you take your eyes off them, they become their darkest self, which is a mechanism in the game. The Queen. I'm just going to read all these because they're all pretty entertaining. When you have sex with someone, they gain the condition one of them. When while the condition remains, they count as part of your gang. So the queen has an entourage that follows her around, and one of them is the tag given to members of the entourage. So when the queen has sex with somebody, basically that player character becomes part of their gang, or it could be an NPC. And this is the vampire, of course. The vampire, you gotta have a vampire. When you deny someone sexually, gain a string on them. When you have sex with them, lose all strings on them. And then the werewolf, when you have sex with someone, you establish a deep spiritual connection with them. Until either of you breaks that spirit connection by having sex with someone else, add one to all rolls made to defend them. You can tell when that connection has been broken. Now, I think calling these sex moves is a little, it's a bit much. I think maybe like romance move or something along those lines. And I could see something like that existing in D&D, where you would have different types of basically love styles, I guess. Where some people will create a bond, some people would use it to create advantage over other people. Some people would be invigorated by it. Some people would, I create some other problem for them. But the idea of having a mechanism for romance inside of your D&D game, I think, is a great idea. And yeah, like I said, a sex move, I think, is calling it a sex move is a bit much. Uh, Makes people a little bit uncomfortable because you don't want to be like, oh yeah, I'll have sex with you across the table. Uh, but and also, you don't actually role play the sex. Just to be clear, I always fade to black when something romantic is about to happen. You kind of do that old movie thing where you cut to the next scene. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a neat idea. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say.